All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing over this podcast right now. We're live. Not seeing my face, but we're doing over the podcast because, for a number of different reasons, I was basically unintelligible and I was a bit draggy and almost boring as I was going through the previous podcast. So I'm going to do this over, add a couple little tips to it. Shout out to you all. Start with the scripture, which is Psalms 139, I believe it is. No, sorry, 133. How good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Truly, you know, it's where things really happen is when people come together and actually work together. That's where real things happen. So that's the scripture for today. Getting into what we're going to talk about one time. So we'll jump right into it. As you can see here, it's the art and meaning, realism and fiction. That's what we're looking at here. So let's get into it. All right. Let's get into it. Some extra news in the DCEU, so I'll try and give you guys a little bit of updates as we go along. All right, you're not seeing anything right now, are you? So let me just get to screen share right now and get to that. There you go, screen share. And we should be in right about now. Let's get to it. So the first thing I was talking about was thematically there are ghosts in the DCEU. That's a theme, ghost. And without going into too much detail, I'm just going to focus on what we're talking about here, which is Batman v Superman and also Man of Steel, where Clark sees the ghosts of his fathers, specifically his fathers. So in Man of Steel, he speaks with the ghost of his Kryptonian father, which is Jor-El, and Jor-El tells him about the history of Krypton, his past, and how Kal-El fits into that past, and how he can bring hope to the world through the House of El, which had done it before. Okay, so it was really about Kal-El knowing his roots, knowing his past, knowing his father's roots and his father's past and his father's passion. What drove his father to have him come to this new world, and what his father saw, and behind it was hope. So that was, he spoke with the ghost of his father. He didn't speak with his father. He never met his father. Okay, his father died many, many years before, and what you saw was the shell of his father, a ghost of him. All right. In BVS, Clark Kent, not Kal-El, but Clark Kent, the human-raised Clark Kent, speaks with the ghost of his adopted earthly father, Jonathan Kent. As we know, Jonathan Kent died in 1997. And so now, almost 9 years later, 8 years, 9 years later, Clark is on this very high mountain, again, a deserted mountain, a high mountain, a deserted mountain, where he's speaking with his deceased father. And through that conversation, he learns a bit about his father's past and how it kind of intertwines with his own. And through that past, he learns about how his father found redemption, how he found out that there's still good in the world, how his father regained his hope in goodness, in humanity, and in the world through love and through his wife, showing him and believing in him. It's very much like Lewis. So that's how Clark was able to recenter himself to the world and rededicate his hope, or regain his hope for the world. In both cases, as you can see, Clark Kent, as you see here, is looking away from the camera, which I thought is looking upwards to something greater. And I always find that great. That shows that there's hope. And in both cases, Clark had stumbled and fell. Okay. He was flying through the sky. He crashed to earth, and he remembered Jor-El, the ghost of Jor-El's words. And similarly here, he's remembering his father's words to him while he's in solitary wilderness, almost a wilderness experience. Again, high altitude, cold, same sort of environment, same sort of background. And what's interesting about it is it reminds us of Jesus and his wilderness experiences, how you go out into the wilderness and speak with his father. So here, once again, Jesus speaks with his father, which we cannot physically see. He's like a ghost himself. And I find that all these parallels are really beautiful. And so I just wanted to point that out. You guys can also discuss your stuff in the chat section. This is the new information. I think some of you may have seen it already. And this is the view of Aquaman. And this is one of the rulers in Aquaman, rulers of the seven seas. And very interesting it looks. I don't know what to say to you guys. I would say that this here looks like they have some prosthesis on him to get this sort of look. I don't know. I can't say that this is something that I feel very excited about. I don't really feel very excited when I see this. Maybe it's the special effects that they're using, but um, it doesn't really breathe extreme excitement from me. This is interesting. This fish-looking object, and this is, I guess, a fish-looking kind of human. And here's this fish-looking family. He's not human. I mean, humanoid in appearance and stuff. So I'll be interested in seeing how far they go with this and what kind of special effects they actually apply. Where we'll see if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Um, so James Wan Aquaman. Everything's very shiny, somewhat fish-looking, but very shiny. I don't know what to say, man. We'll see. You have to see the Aquaman movie. But while some people are really excited about this, I am. I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, okay. We'll see how this looks. This turns out. It looks like he's on, and he's not in water there. He's outside of water. I have to assume he is. Um, but he's probably in water because I see, you see the other fish person, and he's got fins and stuff. So he's probably in water here. I don't know. I have to see how especially effects work out when I see them floating around in water or whatever they're doing. So, you know, the Clone Wars, they had underwater stories as well with Light and Magic. I think they're using Light and Magic instead of the other company, which kind of, to me, gave much more realistic feel. This one looks, there's much better resolution, but again, I feel the sense of almost a theatrics, a sort of lack of realism there. But maybe this is just a shot behind the scenes shot or something, and this is not necessarily in the shot of Aquaman. I can't really tell you what I think about it, but the actual view of this right now does not really breathe a tremendous heart pulsing, heart beating sort of feel within me. Let me put it that way. I don't feel very enthused about it. Now, some of you are going to be like, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know. It's just the way how it's shot. It feels very sort of almost Hollywoodish, and not like if some people are underwater. It looks like people are on land at this present point in time. This is the kind of feel and look it looks like at present. So hopefully when I see it underwater, you see the water moving, light changing, and so on, right? At this point in time, it does not look like they're in water. It looks like they're on land. That's what it looks like right now, the way the lighting hits them, etc. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it looks like underwater when all is said and done. We'll see. So we're going into deeper meanings in BVS. Alfred comes and speaks to Bruce while he is inside of Wayne Manor, gearing up to go fight Superman. He says, you can't win this. It's suicide. That's what Alfred Pennyworth says to Bruce Wayne. And on the surface, it seems as if Alfred is talking to Batman about being no match against Superman. But that's not really what he's saying, per se. Let's take a deeper look. When he says you can't win this one, he's really speaking of Batman keeping his morality while at the same time carrying out this mission. Alfred has been against the mission from day one, speaking about the changes in Bruce Wayne, where he's talking to him about, when the gods thunderbolt, gods, fight, innocents die, the feeling of rage, and powerlessness that turns good men cruel, right? So from the beginning, he's talking about how Batman is turning cruel because of the Black Zero event that happened with Superman and with General Zod, and what happened to his Wayne, the Wayne Towers. Interesting, Wayne Towers and Twin Towers. That was very interesting. And so he's speaking really about Bruce committing suicide, moral and ethical suicide, because Bruce is kind of at the end of his moral line, his ethical line. He's moral, ethically almost bankrupt. And you will see that in his dreams. His dreams reflect that. And he, no matter what Alfred does, he tries to appeal to that quality of honor and of virtue inside of Bruce, and Bruce will not listen. Alfred says, when Bruce He says to Bruce, you cannot hide anything from me, Bruce. Bruce tells him, well, it's a rock. It that can destroy Kryptonian cells. And then Alfred says he says to Bruce, so you're going to steal it from Lex Luthor to destroy it. And he's like, no. He's like, you're going to go to war. That son of a bitch brought the war to us 2 years ago, right? 1400. Alfred's like, he is not our enemy, right? He's arguing with him straight through, and Bruce would not listen. And I want to make it abundantly clear, even after Alfred says, you can't win this. This is suicide, which is basically suicide for Batman, because you're destroying the moral fabric of him. You're going to cross that boundary and never come back. He's also saying to him, you're going to commit suicide yourself. You as a Wayne, what Waynes represent, as a person, you're not going to be this person who's really trying to defend people, to make, defend the policy and help us. So he's trying to say that in a very succinct sentence. He's saying, you can't win this. It's suicide. And this is coming off of the Capitol Hill disaster that happened, the tragedy, the destruction that happened, that Superman was a part of. And remember, Superman was a part of when General Zod knocked down Wayne Manor. Again, Bruce is not able to distinguish between the fact that Superman may be there present, but it doesn't mean that he caused it. And I think these are the things that Bruce just would not think clearly, because he's so enraged and so feeling powerless that he could do nothing. And so he's not hearing Alfred, no matter how much Alfred had been speaking to him with sense nonstop through this thing. He resisted. He did not want Alfred to be, he didn't want Bruce to be facing off against, Superman. Even so, Bruce is adamant on it. And I'm telling you right now, that is the reason, like, it didn't matter if Superman told Bruce or Batman, about, try to ramble on Lex Luthor's plans. It would never have worked. Never have worked. The only time Bruce was willing to entertain that notion was when he had Superman at his foot, subdued, and he's ready to destroy him. He was willing to listen to any truth that Superman would come out with. Just that in this case, he was very much thrown for a loop when Superman said something that was very selfless about saving his mother. Okay. So I just use this to make the point that this moment was actually a lot deeper. It was really talking about ethical and moral suicide. That everything that Batman represents, everything that Bruce represents, or tried to represent, as imperfect as he may have represented it, was now going to be killed and destroyed. That's what Alfred was actually talking about, which I thought, adds a lot more meaning to what he was saying. But a lot of people looked at it superficially. Looking at realism, and that was to some degree realism, right? And it's always better for people to work together than to work apart, right? So talking about realism, we see that there's a number of media in BVS, and we all kind of knew this for a while. But what I want to point out to you, though, is just how prevalent that media is. And literally, it is its own organism. And we see real media, that's media from our world in there, such as Microsoft and NBC. NBC is National Broadcasting Company, not network, company. It's not NBN, okay? And then you had CNN there, Cable News Network, NPR, the National Public Radio. And then you have Galaxy Communications, which is actually a fictitious company, which is actually grounded in DC lore. And that was the fictitious company that is this here, GBS, which GBS is Galaxy Broadcasting System. And that is found in DC. It's not necessarily a metropolitan company or metropolis company. It's actually a multi-national company. Big conglomerate. And I would like to know from you guys, what is MDN2? I don't know what that is. That's why I have a question mark there. Of course, later on in BVS, we also see HLN, which is Headline News, which is an actual media associated with CNN. And you see Nancy Grace there talking to another person, another reporter. We also have in this world fictitious company such as Metropolis Network News, MNN. It's a fictional company. We also had Metropolis 8, Channel 8, which is really from WGBT, which we saw in Man of Steel. Also, it's associated with also Galaxy Communications. It's part of the Galaxy Communications hub. So we have all of those places. Of course, we have the Daily Planet in there, again, a fictional newspaper. So we have fictional companies and we have real companies. And then the funny thing about it is sometimes we have in those fictional companies real reporters. And I've already talked about a list of real reporters, but I just want to add a couple of extra ones to there that, again, a lot of real reporters were inside of this movie. A lot of people working in media. So Carrie Birmingham is actually, she reports for Fox News. This is her down below here. And she's reporting for Fox News here for some incident on the other. And then you see her in a fictitious company reporting the news. She's the one that was talking about what happened with the destruction while Alfred was seeing the red notes that were sent to Bruce, and he was seeing the disaster at the Capitol. All right, we can see CNN is also there. And I thought that was very interesting. Here's another real reporter here. This was in for Metropolis. And the interesting thing about Metropolis Channel 8 is that it actually is reflective of Detroit. So when you think Detroit, you think Metropolis. When you think Chicago, you think Gotham, okay? And so here, this reporter who's reporting here is actually Jay Towers, who reports for Fox 2 in Detroit. So it's interesting. He's basically reporting in the same place because he's more than likely this scene was shot in Detroit. So therefore, yeah, Jay Towers is again basically announcing in his home state, which is very interesting. All right. And so I just thought that was something that, again, talks about the realism to it, that, you know, Zack Snyder integrates realism with fiction. And so I just wanted to point that out. Again, the coming together. You know, it's a bless for brethren to dwell together in unity. When you bring things together, generally you get something better than both of them. And as I was saying before, we're looking at the realism and fiction. Here again, we have a degree of realism and fiction. And what's interesting, this is also entertaining art. So we have art, realism, fiction. Here we go to it. So in BVS, we have the scene where we see Princess Diana, and Diana Prince, as she called, you know, in the world, she is right now in a Gotham museum. And a certain gentleman, James Harmon, as we learn from the credits, who is the museum's director and curator, he pulls her aside and shows her the triumph of what he assumes is Alexander the Great's triumph, okay, which is a sword. And this is James Harmon here in the movie. But James Harmon is actually played by Graham Beale, who was the former president, CEO, and director of Detroit's Institute of the Arts from 1999 to 2015, which is quite amazing because it's like he really fits the profile of someone who would be a director of a museum, because he actually was the director of the Institute of Arts in Detroit. So I thought this was really cool. I'm not too sure. I think this museum is in Gotham, not in Metropolis, but I could be wrong. And the thing about it is, so we have a real person who's actually carrying out this museum role. And what's funny is the character, James Harmon, and that's where, again, real and fiction. James Harmon is a fictional character. It's actually a fictional character, but that actually calls back to the comics. So it's an Easter egg to the comics. And James Harmon was seen in the comics with Batman, as usual, and with Robin. And it's in the comic issue of issue number 33 of the World's Finest Comics, okay, which you see over to this side. And it's actually, when you go to the Batman and Robin section of it, because there's a Superman section and so on, the different sections. When you go to the Superman section of it, you actually see more and learn more about James Harmon, which for some reason I just didn't pay attention to. So here you see that in Gotham City Museum, which is this place above here, there is one gallery that blazes with light and beauty. My life work, and now it's complete. James Harmon, curator of gems, has here gathered the world's finest collection of precious stones for his museum. So again, he's a curator. Guess what? This James Harmon here is a curator as well, and he this time has gems, right? My blue white diamond, the most flawless in existence. And then it goes on later on to talk about him. He actually turns out to be a villain because he gets fired and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay. But it's interesting that James Harmon from the comics, which appeared in the World's Finest issue number 33, is an actual comic book character that we see here come to life. So there's a lot of firsts in this movie. But the thing about it is, the realism in the movie is still maintained. So this character here, which is quite eccentric in this comic, is actually much more grounded in this comic, and it's kind of feeding off of the director of the Institute of Arts, which is actually Graham Beale. He was that. So I find this rich with realism. It's like he brings this realism from being a director and CEO and president of the Institute of Arts. He sort of brings that to the table, and I find that really wonderful. And that's the realism mixed with the fiction. And maybe they'll take this character and do something else with it later on. Who knows, right? So look out for that. But it's a beautiful Easter egg to the nod to the comics as well, which is fiction, right? And so that's the kind of balance I'm talking about. And it's beautiful that you're really mixing a lot of art with fiction. And we're going to talk about the mixture of art with fiction. So this art with fiction, you know, the comic books are artic, you know, a lot of artist accounts. Well, here's another beautiful piece of art mixed with fiction. And this is the thing I like about Zack Snyder. So in the background here, let's look at the first photo. In the background here, let me just zoom in a little bit more so I can get that. Yes, that's nice and clear. In the background here, if you look very carefully, this is Diana, that Bruce is approaching her and so on. She's looking at the Triumph. If you look very carefully, you will see that there is a picture in the background here. It is of a female saint, and there are two others accompanying her, but there's a lot more details there, but we can't see it. And the interesting thing is the female saint's head is turned in the same direction that Diana's turned her head, tilt her head. I thought this was just beautiful because in a way, this Diana is representing the saint. And this saint, as I will show you, I might as well show you in a couple of minutes, is a saint that you kind of know. Now, I couldn't really get the identical, you know, painting, but I get something approximately close to it. And what's interesting in the background here, when Diana is talking to Bruce after Bruce is, you know, trying to, you know, apprehend her for stealing his drive, in the background behind Diana again, there's this echo, this female sculpture echoing Diana here. And when you turn to Bruce and Bruce is talking to Diana, you see the male sculpture over on this side. It's one hand missing, but it's a damaged male sculpture. And I think it's reflective of Bruce. Bruce is a damaged sort of soul speaking with, you know, the female sculpture of it. And it's, you know, they look like kind of Greco-Roman. So I thought this was very interesting to just highlight how art is imitating reality, and how Zack Snyder subtly in the background is constantly putting in these iconographies, which I thought was very interesting for people to see and to experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about Zack Snyder, but let's just go to the picture itself. So when you go to the painting itself, I tried to sort of pull it out there. Let me just let's get it a little sharper here. Let me see. There you go. That's nice and clean, I think. All right. So this is the actual painting. And as you can see here, this is a saint. She's sitting down. So if you look at it carefully, she's sitting down. There seems to be like a sun or something shining there. And on the right side and on the left side, there are two women. Okay, her hands are kind of out. And there are two women or angels or something. And then down below here, if you look here, there's a little angel down here. And then you see some faces down here. And so I believe that this is actually the, it's called the Assumption. I think it's the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. All right. Now, I couldn't get the similar sort of thing, but this is pretty much similar by design. Her hands are at the side in this case, and she's sitting down. She's not standing up. But here you see the two saints on either side of her, which are women. See the Virgin Mary, she has ascended to heaven, and you see the little angels down below here. Okay. And then below that is the disciples or the apostles. Okay. And I think that that's what this is actually here. It's always in an arch. So you see a little arch there. And here is a much more ancient picture of that. And this is the Assumption of the Virgin by Benzo Gozzoli. Okay. And again, she's sitting down, which is what we want. And then around her are angels. And then you have the angels here down below. And then you have the apostles down below here. So I think that's what you're looking at. And if you look over here, it's the same thing. I had to get different versions. I couldn't actually find the actual thing. And there's her hands are to side again. But, you know, above here, you can see her hands are actually at her sides here. And they're kind of brought out forward. So this is what I think is. She's dressed in white. So all of these are dressed in white, if you notice. All right. And this is kind of the closest depiction I could get of her. But the thing about it is, when you superimpose that figure upon Diana, you get that she has ascended herself. She's a god. And you get that she's also trying to give comfort and assurance and that kind of thing. So because she's a god of Zeus, and Mary's ascended into heaven, I think this is the kind of imagery and iconography you're looking at as she looks at the sword. So I thought that was very interesting. Which leads us to some more art. Zack Snyder seems to put in a ton of classical works. There's a lot of stuff you will miss when you look at it. But again, I talked to you about Bruce Wayne, how he's a damaged soul, right? Here he is, and there's the male sculpt here with missing an arm, right? He's a damaged soul. So it's very much beautiful watching this symmetry between Lex Luthor's art that you see on the wall, when Lex Luthor is in the room of his deceased father, and then you see the art on the walls of the mausoleum. Mausoleum is basically like a big tomb which holds, the caskets and stuff for the dead. In the mausoleum of Bruce Wayne's deceased parents. Okay, and I find the iconography is very much the same. It's a repeated iconography, which is symmetrical. And again, these iconographies actually are very similar to or inspired by known works of art. For instance, this iconography here, where Michael is basically descending upon the devil and his imps, is captured in Gustave Dor's 1866 Michael Casting Out Rebel Angels from Heaven. All right, there's this devil here, it's getting knocked down, and you see Michael there with the sword drawn, okay? And literally, shot for shot, this iconography that we see here is actually a remake or inspired by the Archangel Michael defeating Satan, done by Guido Remy, or also known as Michael Remy, in 1635. So it's just literally classical works. You literally see the flames right here, which are they're imitated and done over by these flames. There's slight changes in the outfit, but by and large, this is the inspiration for that art. And what's interesting about that is you see Michael defeating the demons, but in the actual scenes, for instance, Lex Luthor, for instance, he expresses his desire for the opposite to happen, for the demon to actually overthrow Michael. And in this scene here, in the mausoleum scene, where Bruce goes to visit his parents, particularly his mother, we see that Bruce gets overthrown by a demon, the demon bat. And so Bruce represents basically Michael the Archangel because he's the defender. He's the defender of mankind, right? Whereas here, Michael the Archangel is the defender of heaven, right? And we see that Michael, what Lex Luthor wants is the overthrow of Michael. And what happens in the scene with Bruce in his nightmare is that he is overthrown by the bat demon. So you see that in this case, both cases, the pictures are flipped. With Bruce, it's a psychological flip because Bruce has made a choice to depart from just simply being a defender, a protector of mankind, a protector of a city, protector of Gotham. He was a protector, right? To one now who is now a avenger, a hater, someone who is morally being bankrupt by his hate and his fear and his hopelessness. And he's looking to assassinate, kill, murder Superman, okay? Which goes outside of the boundaries of just being a defender. So he's being eaten over by this demonic spirit, which is what his dream reflects. And that's the beauty of that moment right there, which I found very beautiful. And again, Zack Snyder just delving into the classic arts. I think it's the art department that actually does that. And we will give some credit to the art department in a minute that deals with Justice League. I think they have a lot to do with it. And there are a lot of key people in that art department responsible for these things. So I just wanted you to pay attention to those things. Beautiful artworks. And this is why BVS separate from other comic book movies, because it's loaded with all kinds of good stuff. And the art, again, reflects reality, psychological reality. It's a grounded reality. While the art seems fantastical, it's really based on the qualities and virtues of the people at the time, the spirit that they are moving in, right? That's the parallel. And which reminds me of the art department. This is interesting. Most of, I would say most, or not all of it, but most of the Daily Planet is actually made up, when you look at the names of people there, of the people in the art department for Justice League. Jay Oliver, for instance, is the sports writer here for the Daily Planet, which I found very interesting. Let me just zoom in a little bit more so you can see that a little better. Still fuzzy, huh? 1 second. There you go. It's nice and sharp now. Okay. Jay Oliver, and you can see Jay Oliver is the sports writer here. And Jay Oliver has been on social media actively talking about release the Snyder Cut. Shout out to him. Really wonderful work, Jay. Keep it up. Please keep on talking about the Snyder Cut, and we will try and push as hard as we can. This is the reason why we need the Snyder Cut for Justice League, because when you see Batman v Superman and the kind of work that was put into that movie, and then you realize that Justice League doesn't even match up to even, 1/50th of that. That's when you realize, okay, Chris Terrio, Zack Snyder, this is what we wanted. And it's a much more mature take on comic book movies because it's grounded in realism. It's really, based on our reality, our world, right? Jay Oliver. And Jay Oliver, this is a tribute to Jay Oliver, who is an American storyboard artist and director who resides in LA. He's done a number of great DC comic book movies. He's done Green Lantern, First Flight, Batman Year One, Batman the Brave and the Bold, Wonder Woman, the animated film. If you remember that, 2009, it was really fantastic. Scooby-Doo Mystery of Batman, Batman Superman Apocalypse, Batman Under the Red Hood. He then did Young Justice. He also did Green Lantern Emerald Knights, which was a very good series, by the way. The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, which is a fantastic one. Justice League War, Batman Assault on Arkham, Batman versus Robin, and Batman Black Blood. So he's done all of those animated films. And then he also was pulled on, when he was doing The Dark Knight Returns Part 1, he was pulled on by Zack Snyder to do Man of Steel in 2013. He also did the storyboarding for 300 Rise of an Empire. And of course, Batman v Superman, in which he gets credit for that. He's also done Ant-Man 2005, Deadpool 2016, Wonder Woman 2017, and Justice League 2017. And he also teaches in Loyola Marymount University, which is really cool, and directing for animation and live action films. It's really awesome. So this is a fantastic guy, and this is a tribute to him, which we don't see him in the movie, but you see his place here, Jay Oliver, sports writer. And it's interesting, he has I mean, this is just terrible. You got hanged up inside of the Metropolis, inside of the Daily Planet. He's got a Gotham City University uniform. Sacrilege. I'm surprised Perry Wright just allows him to do that. But it's really funny as hell, if you ask me. It stands out right there. He's saying he's a Batman fan, I guess. And then here, you can't really see it that clearly, but Grant Sampson is another person from the art department. And so, they give a lot of credit in BVS to the art department, which I thought was very nice. Shout out with the Daily Planet. And Grant Sampson, he is known in the art department for his work on Passengers, Transcendent, Spider-Man Homecoming, and also Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, where he got his credit just a minute ago, right? So that's really cool. I like to look out for those little things, those little in-house stuff. Eric Boring. Now, the problem with this was I couldn't find any information on Deandra Goosens. That's Deandra Goosens over there. So I did not get any information on her, but I was able to get some info on Eric Boring. You can't see it right there, but it's Eric Boring is his name. And this is, I guess, either him or an actor playing him. I don't know. But he's also in the art department. And when you look at his resume and his history, again, his filmography tells us that he actually is involved in a Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. He's what you call a gang boss, where he does set dressings. So that's really cool. Again, shout out to the art department. They've done an excellent job giving the look, the aesthetics, etc., etc., etc. And then finally, we have Liz Ritenour. And Liz Ritenour, as you can see up there, I don't know if you can see it really right there, but oh God, sometimes this really annoys the shit out of me. Hold on a second, folks. Let me just cancel this. I don't know what I just did. Okay, great. I just want you to see Liz's stuff here. Fucking hell, man. Stop clicking that. Okay, it's nice and sharp now. Liz Ritenour, and she's photo editor in the Daily Planet, and she happens to be right here. She is the art department assistant department art department assistant here in this movie, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. She's also done Justice League, Get Shorty, New Money, Masters of Sex, Whiskey, Tango, Fortrat, The Pickled Recipe, Lost River, etc., etc., etc. All right, but I just found it really cool that they actually had shout outs to the art department. Zack Snyder posted up on Vero. He posted up this shot here, and he says hashtag TBT to protecting Lex. Okay, so this is Lex's the squadron that actually protected him, which I really liked. And this would probably have not been in the post-credit scenes. This would have probably been in the movie, not post-credit scenes, but it ended up in post-credit scenes thanks to WB. But that's okay. The fact that it came up was really nice, and it is a nice touch. And so there you go. I definitely want to see the Snyder cut for this movie. Another really cool thing that Zack Snyder put in there was this. This vessel here is known as the Natsumi. And Natsumi is beautiful or something else in Japanese. So this is a Japanese ship, old Japanese ship at that, but still a Japanese ship. And I thought it was just worth the while to just kind of highlight this. And his, his call out to anime, Japanese stuff, which I thought was really cool. A nice shout out there. So basically, that's all I had to say to you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're in the chat section, cool. You can chat up a storm. I had to redo this video because I thought it was worth the while to talk about these different themes and these different principles, as well as talk about art and its meaning in these movies. There's a lot. This movie approaches everything by an artistic way. I can't really figure out what the structure is that he's talking about here. This three-pronged structure amongst these rocks. It has a meaning behind it, but I'm not quite sure what it is. If you guys know what the meaning is, please let me know. Also, if you know which mountain range it is that Superman came up on, that would be also awesome. Leave it in the comment section if you want, or leave it in the chat section. Let me get your thoughts on this first look at Aquaman here. And yeah, that's pretty much it I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, you can subscribe and also donate to this channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this a lot. On that note, we got to get out of here. Video Game Vision Quest says, cool episode. I caught the last 10 minutes. I need to watch from the beginning. All right, my dude. I hope you have a good evening, a good time. I'll be out of here. The last time I tried to do this, I was falling asleep, man. I was falling asleep. So I was saying some really dumb, slurry kind of stuff that I didn't. So I just wanted you guys to know that always enjoying your input. Don't forget to like the video, share, as well as you can also get people to donate to this channel. That would be nice. I would like that. I'll tell you how to donate through MoneyGram and Western Union. All right, guys, you have a good one.